Hello everyone, and welcome to the 15th edition of the Cure Tinnitus Show. My name is Dinas Mikkel. I'm the founder of CureTinnitus.org, and not a tinnitus sufferer anymore, more kind of a tinnitus, sort of scooching along a little bit with a little bit of it left. And Julian is our resident expert who had tinnitus for 20 years, was suffering with it extremely for a while, and let go of it completely. He's a registered craniosacral therapist working out of London. Welcome, Julian. Hello.
Hi, good to be here.
Most likely with this show, we may not get to the exercise portion because we have a good number of questions at the membership site. And so if we can, we'll do the member questions and then we'll do an exercise together. And if not, we'll just deal with the member questions, and that will be the show for today. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. All right, here's the first one. Well, I know you don't like being called Jules. At least that's what I've heard. Do you like being called Jules?
That's all right.
Julian or Jules often talk with a little smile. Often talks about a personality type. Driven, focused, successful, that he encounters in his practice, and mentions that it is very typical for tinnitus sufferers. What about those who are not driven or focused, who lack motivation and have not been particularly successful in terms of their careers, who still suffer from tinnitus?
People like that, you can ask them, how do you relax and unwind? And people say, oh, I go gardening. I do a lot of gardening. And I thought, that sounds good. So when you're gardening, what's going on in your head? And I say, well, I'm thinking about what job I need to do. I'm worrying about my kids. I've got to do such and such. And they're really, really hectic, frantically thinking and sorting things out, analysing, imagining, creating in their heads rather than just gardening. Tinnitus people are notoriously cerebral, and if they're sitting at home and they're unemployed, I can almost guarantee that they'll be planning this, creating that, organising this, having arguments about that in their mind. Their minds will be very, very driven and very active, and the tendency is not being able to switch off and just sort of settle or be and just relax. If people have very driven cerebral minds, then they tend to be quite sort of, a lot of people can be very successful in business, but you can also get people who are a little bit out of focus and a bit all over the place, but their minds are still racing. It's the racing mind bit that's really, I think, central to this.
So basically you're saying, if the person's not driven, maybe they're racing. If the person's not focused, like overly focused, maybe they're sort of scattered and out and about.
Yeah, but then central to fight or flight response or overwhelm is that the mind is constantly active and it can't switch off. So you can you might see somebody sitting in a chair looking relaxed, but inside their heads they're incredibly busy. And you might see another person going shopping, and yet they're deeply relaxed, and they sort of have this sort of peaceful quality about them, and they're in the present moment. They're not zooming off into future scenarios or planning this or planning that. They're just doing the shopping, or they're just gardening, or they're just cooking. That's really where I'm coming from with this.
Can you tell me, what is mind?
Wow, what a question. Awareness, I think. What we are conscious of, what we're aware of. And some people's minds may be full of thoughts and pictures and images and ideas. Other people's mind can be full of body-based experience, with occasional thoughts and feelings and interactions. And at a very deep level, well, I mean, this is, I guess, my Buddhist side coming out, but I think the mind is everything and everywhere.
Well, then we're getting into more what consciousness is. But when you're talking about mind as in the area for people suffering from tinnitus to recognize, let's see, as a potential place for hyperactivity, or as a potential place to look at in terms of settling.
Absolutely.
What is that mind? That's the mind that thinks about what. What does it do, and what does it feel like, and how is it different from body? And that's going to relate to an upcoming question. So,
focusing on the mind. If you look at the mind and watch what's going on in the mind, you can. I mean, some people don't know that they can actually sit back and watch what's going on in the mind. You can sit back and be a witness to the thoughts appearing and disappearing, and your feelings appearing and disappearing, and the body feeling like this and then feeling like something else. It's this constantly shifting state that we're going through all the time. It's really interesting being able to sit back and become aware of that. Very commonly with tinnitus, at the beginning, people get into a very fearful state, and their thoughts run away with themselves, and it's almost like people get trapped in their thoughts, and the body sort of clamps down, and it's like they feel trapped in the body, and there's no space. People often feel hounded and afraid, and there's no ability just to step back and let things go. And tinnitus kind of likes that. It latches onto states like that. But if you're able just to sit back and just practice something like a breathing technique, or yoga, or gardening, or just noticing what's going on in the body, then the mind becomes much less sort of contracted down, and the awareness can just sort of fill the whole body and maybe sort of expand out a bit. And that is a much more comfortable place to be in. If you can just sit back and let things come and go, thoughts, feelings, body sensations, that's a state that makes it much harder for tinnitus to keep going in.
Okay. The next question is that you often refer to Bodywork. Are you mainly referring to craniosacral therapy, or do you include yoga and Pilates and these kinds of things?
I include absolutely everything. Personally, cranial work works very well for me, but no, I'm certainly not being exclusive about cranial work. I think any body-based activity that puts you in touch with your body, or if you have any treatment from someone else which helps put you in touch with your body, or if you go to a class that develops body awareness, I think that's incredibly helpful. I think it's one of the most important things. Unless somebody has burning emotional, psychological issues, obviously things like psychotherapy can be good for that. I personally think it's essential for people to let go of tinnitus, to have a regular body-based practice, or a regular body-based therapy that helps them let go. We cannot it's hard to let go by ourselves, but if you work with the body, by contacting the body, by becoming aware of the body, the mind starts to slow down and clear. It's like the body is the best tool to help the mind settle.